Good evening and welcome to the Acton School Committee meeting of January 14th, 2021. Our first meeting of the new year, and we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, do we have any adjustments to our agenda tonight?
There are none, and we will go into a brief executive session this evening.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our celebration of learning.
And that's going to be with Tracy Scully, who's our English teacher, but is also our athletic director at Acton School Department.
Okay. So I don't really have great news as far as athletics go, but I've been attending 80 meetings regularly, and we're still coded yellow. There's nothing we can do as far as sports go. We can't practice and whatnot. So Don and I talked about it, and it looks like we're probably going to forgo the winter season. A lot of schools, we thought we were going to be able to do mid-January to mid-March as far as a league, but now, of course, we're back, and a lot of schools are pulling themselves out of the mid-January to mid-March, and it probably looks like there's not going to be a winter season at this point. Still crossing our fingers for a spring season. However, John and I did talk, and we're putting together an intramural program here for the kids. So 1 day a week, the kids can come, because we're going to have a blue day and a white day after school for 3 through 5 and 6 through 8. So on the blue days, 3 through 5 can come on Mondays, and 6 through 8 will come on Tuesdays, and they'll have an activity in the gym that we've pre-planned. The permission slips went home today with the white day kids, and they're going to be able to, 3 through 5 is going to play Capture the Cup until February break, and then 6 through 8 is going to play mat ball. Those are safe activities where we can meet the CDC guidelines as far as distance, still wearing masks, but allowing the kids some social time and some of that athletics that they need at the end of the day as well. So, and then again, at the end of the week on Thursday, 3 through 5 will go on Thursday, and 6 to 8 will go on Friday. So that way the blue day kids and the white day kids get an equal amount. And we're going to start it next week and see how it goes. I mean, hopefully we get some kids signed up and excited about doing something after school again.
Yeah, I heard this, the middle school kids who you approached were pretty excited about it. I do know that the younger kids were in Patty's cohort, and hearing through the grapevine, so.
Yeah, so hopefully, we'll do what we can under these circumstances, but my hope is that, crossing my fingers for the spring season, softball and baseball.
Well, who would be in charge?
Of?
Like, who would be there
Intramurals?
Oh, at intramurals?
We got a schedule.
You know how we normally have coaches that we
Be
pay?
the two of us.
Yeah, the two of us.
We'll
Okay.
split it up. It's 4 nights a week, Wednesday being the night we don't meet. And we'll work out a schedule. So we put together a schedule through February break. And then after February break, we might offer something different, like ping pong for the older kids and, cornhole for the younger kids or something, because we have the equipment. We want to break it up into little mini sessions to keep interest and also to generate maybe a different roster of kids that are interested in that sport. Or that game, we should call it a game. It's intramurals, yeah.
Trying to get as many kids involved as possible. So that's our plan.
Let's do that.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Tracy.
Sounds like the best solution we can come up with at this point,
Yes.
really. Yeah, thank you for coming up with that idea, and thank you both for covering that. That's
We
awesome.
think they need it, and we're hoping that if we can pull this off, we might be able to bring some things back in cohorts by color, like robotics or something like that, but that's down the road. We'll have to see what this gives us and what happens in the world, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay,
Thank you, Tracy.
thank you, yes. I'll look now for number 4 for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Mary, seconded by Jeanette, that we accept the consent agenda. All those in favor? I vote. Okay, does anyone have any questions for any of the administrators from the reports that you got in your packet? looks like everybody's doing the best they can under the circumstances.
Well, I guess just the eighth grade students, I didn't know if you were gonna mention that, so you're putting that off.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. The Blackboard went out to parents, this must have been Monday night. Today's Thursday, Monday night. I sent out a Blackboard to all parents of 8th graders saying that we're going to move, bringing all the 8th grade kids back in person 5 days a week to a target date of after February break. It just doesn't make any sense to make that move right now with the way the world is. Our target date was supposed to be next week. The world's still a little messy. Let's give it an extra 4 or 6 weeks, see how it looks. And yes, that has gone out and everybody understands.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Just got 2 quick ones, thank you. Just wanted to mention that the last 24 hours, and we get out of today, that this will be the 48 hours at the end of tonight, that since Thanksgiving, I've always had at least a staff member or somebody who's either kind of out waiting for a test from their spouse or their roommate, or they need a test for themselves because they're not sure, they kind of got the sniffles, and of course you're out until we get the test back. And the end of this week, we're finally at a full complement of everybody, and nobody has had to be out for any particular reason, which is wonderful given what's going on in the world now.
No kidding.
Will it last? No, we know it won't last forever, but let's just celebrate while we can.
We'll enjoy it while it's here.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they got subs that are actually at home, you know? Well, how about that? Yeah. And just speaking of subs, I don't have a chance publicly to say this much, but I gotta tell you, Pat Reeves, Marilyn Young, and Linda Pritchett have been rock and roll all-stars, and I tell them that every time I see them. It's crazy. They come in as subs, and they are consistently always right here for us. And they are just wonderful people who care a lot about this school, and they'll put on a mask, and they'll come get it done. So just kind of a shout out to them. They really have done a nice job. Lastly, I do have some retirements that have been given to me for this year so far. What I have is I have 4 of them, and they're people that have been here for quite a while. So we're going to wish happy retirement come the spring to Deb Otis, Wendy Grindrod, Gail Bovair, and Sue Mitchell. So they've officially told me that this is going to be their last year, and we're going to wish them well in their retirement come spring. We'll find an opportunity to do that closer to the time that they depart our school. And that's about it.
All right. Anybody have any questions for John?
So they're all at Techs, correct?
They are all at Techs, yes.
Okay, let's move on then to progress monitoring.
That's going to be Lori with Learning Management Systems, and you and I might want to move because she's going to use the board, so I'm going to get up.
I'll move
She's
it.
going to take, unless if you want to somehow turn around, I think this is going to be tough. That'll be tough in here. Yep, gotcha.
So we, this year, actually it started last spring, put together an LMS committee. The LMS is our learning management system. Right now, that's Mastery Connect, where teachers go and enter assignments and scores against the standards that we're measuring at each grade level for each content area. We thought it was time with our contract with Mastery Connect coming to an end that we would look to see what else is out there, not because we're not happy with Mastery Connect, but just because it's an opportunity at this point to be sure there's nothing out there that might fit our needs a little bit better, given that LMS companies and products are rapidly growing due to especially remote learning, and there's a big market out there now for developing these. So we've been looking, we've had several teachers as part of that. We meet a couple of times a month, and we had a timeline. We have established a regular meeting schedule. We looked at some of the, we looked especially at Great Maine Schools Partnership and other websites to look to see for criteria to help us when we did have presentations by the company to take a look at them and to use some criteria to score the presentations. And so we looked through those materials. We developed our own rubric. We had surveys out to teachers and students and parents on what should we be looking for in a system. We developed that rubric. We looked at different LMS companies, and then we set up some demos of different products. We had pretty much our last scheduled demo yesterday. We don't have any others set up because we've reviewed, and I'll show you the list, a few to this point, and we think it's time to now sort of stop and look at what we have for data. So our next meeting, we would be reviewing and discussing the results. So this is where we are in our timeline, determining, which products we want to look at, and then to take a look at what that implementation timeline might be if we're looking at something new. So when we did our rubric, these were the categories that we were looking at. How does it help us with instructional design? And each of these areas is broken out into multiple questions. How does it help us with assignments and assessments? What does it look like for reporting out, whether that's to parents or just sharing with teachers across grade levels or cohorts? What do they provide for support if we need to contact them if we were having troubles with the product, or support for professional development with implementation? What are the technology requirements? And then, of course, what is the cost? So every time we sit with a demo, we have a company presenting to us, we have the rubric in front of us, and we sort of score it, and then we enter that into a Google Sheet. And what that gives us is, I'll share with you each of the data we've collected so far. These are the companies we've looked at. We looked at Mastery Connect because we have them anyway, and we wanted to know what they had that might be new. What does it look like if we stayed with them, and what do they have that we could add in to beef up some of the needs that we don't currently see the system meeting for us. We've looked at Schoology. We looked at Empower, we've looked at Jump Rope, and then yesterday we looked at a product called Brightspace. So then we entered all the data from each presentation. We haven't really sat down to discuss what each one looks like when we do this, but Mike has set it up so that we can go in and answer all of the questions in our rubric, and then we get a printout like this. What's the percentage of it doesn't meet, or it meets, or meets most of the needs? So this is what our data collection or the input from the staff that are part of these presentations look like.
Yeah, this is just a general overarching data point too.
Yeah.
We'll go in, and once we find the 2 products or 3 products we like, and look at it more granularly.
Right.
To get that.
So this was Mastery Connect and Canvas. This was Schoology. This was Empower. Jump Rope. And then the one we had yesterday, which was Brightspace. So our next steps will be our next meeting will be really to take a look at all of that data. As Mike said, that was the overarching data that we have, just the big picture. We'll want to dig in because what some had in reporting, others didn't have. So we're not going to find a product that meets every single need. There's really nothing out there at this point. But there are some that are really close. And I guess what we have to do is sort of prioritize what it is that we're looking for, and then really dig into the data and look at what the company has to offer. Once we decide on our top 2, it would be nice to have 2. We might have to go top 3. We'll set up a second meeting with them, maybe just to dig a little bit deeper and see if there's any way we could do some possible piloting. Maybe they can set up a sandbox for us to sort of play in. And so for trial purposes, and then present options to staff.
and then hopefully make a decision in the spring. So that if we were gonna move to something next year, we could have plenty of time to make that switch over the summer and professional development in the spring and in the fall. So that's where we are with our learning management systems. We've learned a lot, using Google Classroom and Seesaw, and then you have Mastery Connect, and you have all these different platforms. So, how do you find something that really works together and then at the same time is friendly enough for parents to get the information they need on how their kids are doing? So, we're trying to find it.
Well, there was one with a little sliver of red,
Yep.
so that looked like a good one, no?
Yeah, so that was, yes, that's one that,
I was looking at the slivers.
that's it.
Empower?
Yeah, there's a couple that are true sort of learning management systems in the sense that they have the instruction and the scoring side, and they also have the parent and reporting side. And then there are some that don't. They're just the instruction, or they're more of just a grade book. So we really just have to decide what's going to fit our needs here.
Right.
Everybody's needs.
On the last two, what was not addressed? Is that questions that you had that just
Right.
didn't
Yeah.
fall, you don't know if they do it, or they?
We didn't get a chance to ask. I went back last night as I was entering my scores, because I didn't, I was just taking notes through the presentation, and I went back to grade it, to enter scores, and then I thought, oh shoot, we never asked that question. I sent them questions today about that, and then they sent me the answers. So it
Yeah,
wasn't
depends
addressed
where it
yesterday, but I
falls.
now have the answers
Oh,
to a
okay.
few of those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can go back in and readdress that. Yep.
So will this be a big learning curve again for staff if we change? I'm only remembering that when we began Mastery Connect, it was a major adjustment for staff to get everybody on board with it.
I don't think so at this point, because with them learning, Google Classroom and Seesaw and using Mastery Connect, I think most of the products now have all similar features,
Similar,
just arranged in a different way.
And on top of that, Master Connect, when we started implementing it, we still had teachers in the traditional mindset. So
Right.
not everybody was in the proficiency-based
Right.
mindset.
Right.
Now everybody's,
Oh, yeah.
definitely jumped on board that. So
Right.
that piece won't be as much of a learning curve.
Right, and Patty, you're on that team. I don't know if you have anything to add, but.
Well, all I can say is right now, I think is the best time to do it. We have a bunch of new teachers here who are pretty much ready to jump into anything. And we saw some really neat stuff that will import easily the things that we have. And as much as I fussed a little bit myself about, I gotta make that assessment over again, sometimes having to do that is a good thing because you look at it with fresh eyes. So I don't think it's gonna be a bad thing. I think it's just gonna be how everyone jumps into it and, what kind of a mindset they're in. So, but there's a lot of really neat stuff out there, and and I think that truly we don't use Mastery Connect to its full potential, and I think starting something new could be really exciting.
I purposely stayed out of this committee work and asked Mike, who's the chair, and Lori's been working right along with him, to wait till you get down to a couple of products and then talk to me about the amount and what that looks like. But I'm not in the weeds with the group, so first of all, thank you. I learned a ton tonight. I didn't know, I haven't been to any meetings, I had no idea, so I'm up to speed. I guess my question for you, Mike, is part of our movement on this was because the Mastery Connect licensure was going to be up, the commitment to use the product is coming up. So does that mean that in this next budget cycle, whether it be Mastery Connect or something else, we need to placehold an amount for whatever our product is going to be? Or are we gonna set it at the Mastery Connect level because we have another year with them? Like, I don't know when the sunset is it July? It is,
I'm having a hard time. I believe I can't remember.
because COVID
The
throws-
the years are blending in together now.
Yeah.
I think we have one more year with Mastery. So the game plan was to have that next year with Mastery, the last year with Mastery, so we can onboard a new product.
Okay.
So we'll kind of get our feet in both, pools.
So we're budgeting for the final year of mastery as we open up the budget process tonight, just to talk about overviews. And then in the following budget year, we'll be working next year to get ready for it and then purchasing something different.
Right.
And as you said, onboarding it. And there may be some cost to the onboarding, and we should be, aware of that because it's a big deal.
Yeah, especially
It's a big commitment.
PD sometimes is like the first
Right.
initiated
You got it.
process, so I'm
Okay.
gonna have to spend some money there.
All right.
Extra.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Long Range Planning Committee, did you meet tonight?
We did meet, we were discussing our long-range planning, on capital improvements, basically. There's, seems to be another round of COVID relief money coming, so we don't know the particulars on that yet. But we will be looking at, we are looking at the following things. So the heating system, roof upgrades, a kitchen dishwasher, kitchen floor. There might be IT stuff. The IT man wasn't there, so I don't know. And kitchen dishwasher. But right now, I'll have Andy update you on the HVAC controls and what's going on there.
So we're about halfway through our heating controls upgrade. And what that is, it's new heating controls. They'll be throughout the building when it's completed. And it's also new software to monitor the system and make adjustments. Very pleased with what has been installed so far. We are going to have much better control of the building temperature and monitoring it. When it's done, most of the classrooms are going to have a digital keypad installed. So instead of the existing little pad that either says cool or warm, there'll actually be a digital keypad where a teacher can walk over and actually adjust the temperature from, there'll be a set range from like 68 to like 72 or whatever they might choose. So I'm pretty pleased with what we've got so far, and I'm pretty excited about getting the rest of it installed so that, the building is much more comfortable from one end to the other. There's always hot and cold spots with the existing software and controls that we have now. The controls that we're replacing are approximately 20 years old. The company that manufactured them is no longer in business, so replacement parts weren't an option. Technology has improved tremendously. Got to thank Mike, as much as it pains me, but Mike has been very helpful because there's a lot of technology intertwined with this, and Mike and the IT guy from Johnson & Jordan have worked together, and a lot of their emails I can't even follow because it's too technology driven, but they've done an awesome job working together and getting this thing going and carrying this project out. So hopefully the next time that we meet, the control upgrade will be completed, and then we'll be moving on to the next project.
Well, as soon as you said new software, we knew who was involved.
Right. Well, once it's installed, I'll be going through some training so that I know how to use the system and stuff. And currently, our system is an old desktop computer in one of the closets that it's like a dinosaur. And Mike kind of stitched that back together last year when it failed, and we knew that it was, on its way out. So it's overdue, and it's a good thing for our building.
So is there any further work on that particular system that we might need additional COVID funds for?
Yeah, as we move forward with the next round of COVID funding and we find out what's available or what it can be utilized for, my wheels are already turning as far as, the controls that we are installing. There are still some other areas in the building that have separate zones that I would like to look at replacing and updating those. Yeah, there's definitely, the list is always there, And if this round of COVID money comes and there aren't as many strings attached to it, we know that the time constraints are not going to be as strict. My hopes are that we can really utilize some of this money as we see the needs arise. So to answer your question, yes, we can definitely use the funding when it arrives.
Excellent. Anybody else have any questions, comments? No?
I see a lot of money is spent from that COVID money, because when I sign the checks and whatnot,
Oh, yeah.
it's a lot of money. I mean, it's all been used where it says it's supposed to be used, but some of the bills are 35,000, 53,000, I mean, it's, you know.
Yeah. It's been a great asset to our system to have that extra money
Yeah,
coming in this year to do some of these things that really long needed to be overdone. All overdue for being done, and
A lot of the items, like in my department, the air quality thing, once COVID hit, it was a big deal. You know, the air quality and the air exchange in the buildings, as I explained at some of the previous meetings. So for us to be able to utilize that money for the updating that we're doing is going to last this building a very long time, long after COVID. So it's a good thing for our school. It really is.
and with the new ventilation system and what's been paid out, probably we don't have to keep so many windows open.
That's a CDC recommendation, Jeanette.
Even with the ventilation system, well, I don't know, I don't want to get into them, but, I know. I just look at the fuel bill, and I'm looking at the open windows, and it's 20 degrees.
But the fuel was like
But once-
$1.50.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I just signed one for 23,000, so I, you know.
I guess to make you feel a little bit better, Jeanette, it will be, you know, a lot of the
I know, I
upgrades
know.
with the
They'll fix
controls. It's definitely,
It will be
it's air
better. I know.
quality and it's also building
know.
efficiency driven, so.
okay, anything else from the long range?
Not now.
Okay. Then let's move on to the policy committee. Got a
Okay.
couple of policies here to
Yep,
update, right? They're
Yeah.
not new ones.
no, update from 1991. Still trying to catch up, Kim is, right? All the- GBA, Equal Opportunity Employment, GBB, Staff Involvement and Decision Making, and GBCBA, Drug-Free Workplace. And all of those, you can see the dark print with it, that have to be done by law. This is something that they say we have to do. And these are all adopted from 1991, so this should all be in order for the next, what, 10, 30 years or what?
Until the state sends us down something, that's how long they'll be in order.
Yeah.
So I'll look for a motion to accept policies GBB, GBCBA, and GBA as being updated as of this date.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? So moved. Revised as of January 14th, 2021. We're moving again? Oh, okay. We're flexible.
You didn't know this was an exercise
Yeah.
class.
I still have a key out there.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna say where Andy was. Don't hit my lights yet, I gotta get on. Are we on the?
Yeah,
over
for
the
me now.
top?
Turn it off.
Have to be weird.
Okay. Can I, actually, with the lights on, can everybody see that okay? Do you wanna, does that work for you? Or maybe one set of lights? We'll play, yeah.
Put that front one.
Front one? There we go. Great. I'll turn my voice up with my mask on. So this is the the evening as we set kind of the tone and the 30,000-foot view of the upcoming budget year. And we're going to be using, the process will be very similar in years past. I'll also present some dates, but at the end of the meeting, I'll give you those dates, hard copy, so you can also check your calendar. So consider all that draft. I just wanted to get us organized for this evening. So I'll just kind of give you the overview of kind of how I see it today. Just to kind of review the process for everybody in the room. At this point, the budget still rests with Kim and I. That is trying to figure out the building needs, the staff needs, and the student needs for next year. Adjustments are made before the school committee even sees the budget and the articles. And then it becomes really, the school committee then gets the budget article by article. And we have dates and times to do that and to look at those articles. And of course, at that point too, adjustments can be made. Sometimes they are. Sometimes we add, sometimes we subtract, but it's a dialogue process. At that point, it's my hope that I've done everything I can to give you something to work with. And the Warrant and Finance Committee is along, our side with us, but they're advisory only. Sometimes they have some great ideas and we listen to what they have to say, and it might change the outcome of a particular article. But their job is to be advisory and there to sit with us. And then, of course, at the end of the day, so to speak, it's going to be an April meeting with the town budget. And of course, adjustments can be made there at the floor at the town meeting too on the school budget. So there's really, three major opportunities that things can happen for changing the budget from the time that it's originally put together to the time that it's actually voted on by the citizens of Acton. These budget dates, just to kind of, I'm going to give them to you in hard copy, so don't worry about that. I just want you to look at the last one, which would be 4/26/21. So that's our April date. If you remember last year, we didn't have 4/26/20 because we weren't in session. Now, right now, we can only gather 50 people inside. Okay, well, let's see how the vaccine works. Let's see what happens when we start opening our windows in late March. Let's see. We've booked the place, the gym, we have it. Maybe we can have, 187 people in there, maybe we can't. But we have it set for 4/26/21 so that we start our process really tonight, but we start our work when we first meet looking at the first articles. And we end on 4/26/21, we hope, with a positive vote from the community. If that were not to happen, if we can't do it and the rules really haven't changed and we don't have enough gathering space inside, then I would move this out to the second Saturday in June, which is the town meeting. Again, hoping that at the town meeting, the second Saturday of June, which I believe is the 12th, the school would be the first set of, articles to look at, and hopefully we can gather in the gym and we can have as many people as we want and up to fire code. And of course, if that can't happen, then that's a decision really that Jen Rue and the town needs to make, because that's their town day too. So as you remember last year, that couldn't happen either, right? So we went to the ballot box on July 14th last year, and we had overwhelming support for the budget that we're living in now. So there's always that as a last option, but I think we need to see how things play out, see what it looks like. So we're shooting for having a Monday night meeting here at 7 o'clock. That's the goal. We'll see how it goes.
So that would be the week after the school vacation?
Yeah, it would be, yeah.
Yeah.
We couldn't do the week before because that's when their tax bills actually go out, and there's just too much work for them. And we certainly don't want to do it during April vacation, so.
And of course, when we get into the dates of the budgets and to get together on these dates, I did have an opportunity to talk to Dennis Long briefly on the phone before this meeting, and kind of expressed my thinking on how we might do it and what is Warrant and Finance. It seems like Warrant and Finance turnover really isn't there. So I think it's the same group of people, and Dennis is still the chair at this point. I don't know if they have to re-up that or not, but he was in favor of that last meeting. So there's a piece where the school committee adopts the budget, and then there's a piece where the Warrant and Finance makes recommendations to the selectmen on the budget. That second piece is advisory only, and they're just recommendations. I asked if we could go back to what it used to be, where the school committee does their work, they swap seats, and then Warrant and Finance takes over. He's in full support of that at this time. Of course, that'll probably be more of a committee decision that's up to Warrant and Finance, but the chair himself thought that was a pretty good idea, and it would be nice if we could get back to that, and we'll see how it goes through the process. Also, if COVID were to take hold, or you couldn't come to a meeting, or Warrant and Finance couldn't come to a meeting, that's why we have Zoom. Let's not have the world stop our work this time. Let's use Zoom. We can meet in person like this, and this is great. And when we have our budget meetings with warrant and finance, if they all show, we'll probably have them in the gym on 8-foot tables spread out, because we can't get everybody in this room and keep them 6 feet apart. I'll deal with that piece, but if for some reason we went red in York County and we couldn't come in the building, we agreed we would do everything by Zoom, and at least through warrant and finance and me. I hope you feel the same way, otherwise we may not get through the budget if we don't use our technology to get our work done. In a nutshell, I can give you this slide. It's just to show this given year, it's always the year we're living in, where our monies are allocated, and I just wanted to say that the 59% is salaries and benefits. So the majority of the blue pie on the right, it's mostly fixed. It's contracts, it's labor contracts, it's salaries and benefits. So we're really, in transportation is the big orange piece moving over, which is 7%. That's fixed. That's not really going to go anywhere either. And tuition, which is the big gray chunk as we move up. We're kind of moving, kind of clockwise. We're around 10 o'clock now. That tuition, that's for the students that are going to either special ed out of district placements or to the high school. That's fixed. So you're really looking at, supplies starts with, and contracted services, is 5%. That's your yellow piece, okay? So now we're like at 11 o'clock. That's fixed. So we're really just looking at those last 3 colors, dark blue, green, and dark blue and red. And, repairs, utilities, books, supplies, curriculum, tech, software, somewhat within reason of that we can do the best we can with the budget. But I show you this to give you an idea that a lot of the work that we do is about a really small part of the pie. It really is a minority part of the total budget, our work, and most of it is fixed years ahead of time. We know what our costs are going to be to have people come to work and receive benefits, and we know how it's going to cost us to move kids in transportation, and we know what our tuition rates are at Sanford High School and our out-of-district placements. So just wanted to remind everybody of the work that we have in front of us, as it is super, super, super important, but a lot of it is also some of it's already decided.
Yeah, but even in the tech, there's contracts that we have that are set already. Yeah.
Contracted services, yeah. So some goals, kind of looking at, what do we got ahead of us? Well, this first one is unique to our situation, is to study, understand, and respond to learning gaps that may have occurred due to COVID. So remember, we're building this budget on what we think is, or what we've always considered normal, which is full capacity, full transportation, mass or no mass, really doesn't matter, but we are fully here engaged with all of our kids. And only until then do I really feel that we're going to have an idea of where the learning gaps are, because a number of our kids have left to go homeschool, and I've called those parents, they plan on bringing them back. That is a wild card. They are not NWEA testing with Lori this week as kids that aren't in school. The remote kids are. They're coming in, and Lori's done a nice job setting up NWA to kind of get those goalpost marks of how they're doing with their achievement. Our kids who've been homeschooled, we have no idea. And when they come back, we'll only know when we start doing some pre-assessments with them to get a baseline. So I throw it up there, is to study, understand, and respond, because we got to look at it. We need to understand what we're dealing with, and it might cost some money to respond to this. We have summer standards recovery for our students that are in the middle school, and we have extended school year for our special ed students. Who knows that we may need an after-school or winter academy for kids because they just showed back up and they're deficient. So I think it would be prudent of us to take that first bullet and think that there may be a financial cost they're moving in, because we don't know what we don't know. And I think it's important that we understand that when kids come back. Revise the special ed transportation. Our contract is up this year, so one of the goals is be as efficient and as effective as possible the resources that we've been able to manage through our federal grants. School safety, it's interesting when school safety, it's always on the front burner. But because you got half capacity and you can't even get into the building as a parent now, it's even harder for the bad guy to get in. So we need to go back and be thinking, we haven't been able to do safety drills because you can't get within 3 feet of each other. So we talk about it, we teach it, but we don't do it. So we need to get back to we still do fire drills, and we have, but some of our safety routines, even our PBIS work, has really fallen to the side because the few kids that are in the hallways are following the expectations, because there's 12 of them. But when there's 24 of them, it's a different mix, and you have to remind them of what the expectations are. So there's been a lot of things that we've been able to kind of not, I want to say be lax on, but they're not priorities this year that need to be back to being a priority again this year, next year, because next year is next year and it might look like what we're used to. I think next year we need to assess the math instruction improvements. I think we should have a conversation too about, is it fair to assume that 1 year of math coaching when we went into full COVID and 3 months of not being here is enough? I think we're going to grapple with that when we look at the budget and look at the numbers and make some decisions if maybe we need an additional year. I don't know. I'm not going one way or the other on that. I'll let you know when I know my student numbers and what my staffing looks like and can tell you if we can afford it. But I think the data needs to inform whether that was a fair shot at math instruction or not. I don't know the answer to that question, but I do want you to be thinking about that. Also, update building systems. We talked quite a bit about that in long range. So because, again, we had an opportunity to update and upgrade our building, we shall. There's some unique challenges this year going into this budget that I've never really seen anywhere, just because of COVID. State subsidy of the EPS formula is based, this isn't any different, is based on our October 2020 count. So that was just a couple months ago. So in October of 2019, we had 232 students. As of October 2020, we have 208 students. So you can see that we have a significant number of students less this year. A number of those students were also special education students that are not here. So we know we're going to see a change in our subsidy to special education. I'm not going to get into numbers and I don't know what they are, but it only makes sense because we have fewer of them. We have fewer students overall. However, look at the last bullet. Almost all of these students plan on attending AES if school transitions back to quote normal. So we count our students in October 2020 and they're not here. So the state sets a budget based on that student number. We come around 9 months and we're into September, I should say 11 months, and they come back and we want them to come back. But we don't have the funding through the state to support the kids when they come back, and I've called the parents and they plan on sending them back. For special education students, I think if we were to get close to 232 going into this and our special education numbers didn't change that much, we'd be in good shape. But a number of the students that aren't here are in special ed. But we also have graduated, and some students have actually physically moved and they're not coming back. I don't want to get into the weeds with that being such a small school, but I know who they are, Sharon knows who they are, and we have a pretty good idea of who might be coming back and who's moved.
The 208 includes homeschool?
No, they left. The 208 of the students, the homeschool students were backed out of that 232. They're not enrolled.
How can you say that? I mean, we're still responsible for
No, we're
that.
not responsible for homeschool students. Remote students.
Only the state is, like, according to their curriculum for their child.
Yeah.
So that's a state thing, not a
Has nothing
town
to do
thing.
with us. We are, good question, because we're way more involved in tracking and identifying homeschoolers than we ever had before, because NEO, which is the instrument that really the state uses, like Mastery Connect for us, they use NEO. There's more work that Amanda and I have to do to identify homeschool students and ensure that they're listed with us, but we're not responsible in any way for their education. Now, Mary, what they can do, and what we've had in the past, and we always should, in normal times, homeschoolers would say, hey, how about can my child please come in and take band and music
Yes,
or art?
yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We put a stay on that this year because we're limiting the number of people coming and
Yeah.
going. But in the future, we will always allow that. Some people homeschooled because they wanted to control the schedule and they couldn't control the hybrid schedule. I'll just homeschool them, I'll keep them, I can control the schedule that way, and when things clear up, I'll bring them back. That's generally the conversation I've had with most parents that are homeschooling. When it cleans up, they're coming back. But they're not listed on our enrollment, we're not getting a subsidy for them, we're not responsible for them, and when they come back, because we're not responsible for them, goes back to that first bullet is, what did they learn, how do we know they learned it, and what does that mean when they come back as a 7th grader when they left as a 5th and a half grader, right? They left in March of 5th grade and now we've lost 6th grade, now they're in 7th grade. Who are they? Are they an 8th grader or are they a 5th and a half grader? I have no idea what they are, but we have to assess them, and I think that's going to have a budget impact. So the opportunities that we have as well in front of us, which is great, is pre-K and K numbers were up prior to COVID-19. So I'm like, here's a mystery. That's the next thing we're working on. I've called all the homeschoolers myself. I personally made a call to every person and said, where are we? What are we at? And if Ann says I didn't call her, I didn't have to, because she told me at PTG she would bring them back, and you were my witness, aren't you? Thank you.
She was
Right.
like, this was a mistake.
So somebody on our PTG happens to be homeschooling her kids, and I asked her at the opportunity, and she said, yeah. So I've done the same thing with everybody else. Our pre-K and K numbers, Amanda's gonna be working on this with me next week. We had 33 kids, or approximately 7 kids more than we thought we could handle in pre-K when we opened school this year. Lined up after we were kind of closed, we had summer school, things were normal around here during the summer. We were masking and doing our thing, and people are checking in, hey, what's opening school gonna look like? I have a pre-K-er, and our numbers were strong. And our kindergarten numbers were growing too. So I'm like, oh wow, we're gonna have to make some choices here. Then parents of kids that are in pre-K, here's my guess. They're like, hey, my kid's not of compulsory education. I don't need to send them to school. Why don't I take a break for a year and see if this thing clears up, and then we'll go in next year. My big question is, now they're a year older, they haven't had pre-K. Do they go into a pre-K slot? Because they can. They only age out when they're older and they can't graduate on time at the other end, which is 20 years old. They can. Should they, or should they go to kindergarten? All questions I don't know the answers to. So I think our growth is going to be at the lower end of the school again. So the good news is, I know there's kids out there, we just don't know who they are yet because they didn't come this year, for good reason. So we're gonna try to discover who they are, and I think our numbers are gonna go up just because of that. Even if the homeschoolers didn't come back, I think we're gonna be in good shape. Acton School Department received funding through the CARES Act. I'll get way more into this later when we develop a budget and I can show the citizens of the town the benefit of that money and how we used it here at the school department. Part of it is we did purchase 3 8-passenger vans that we're currently using. We're currently using them for student transportation right now, and the only cost is the gas. So that's great. Otherwise, we would have had to figure out, we planned on using these vans for next year, or this summer, for summer ESY. We're already using them because we had some things come up that we needed transportation, so we dealt with it. We purchased laptops for remote instruction. That was a big piece of it too. Those laptops are gonna be here for 3 to 5 years, 6 years, so don't need to go there with the local. And we, as you know, we purchased a ton of new heating and ventilation hardware. Again, don't need to go to the local for a number of years because that's in place. I plan on breaking down at some point all of our expenditures and future expenditures for future federal money later in the spring when we really have to present the budget. So this was just to kind of give you an idea today where we stand. And I want to thank Lori for pulling together this year's pictures. This is AES is awesome, and of course this is very relevant. I love the upper right-hand corner. Look at the eyes. And that looks like Judy Shane kind of right off to her left. All dressed up in her hazmat suit.
Oh, boy. Thanks, Laurie.
Yeah, sorry.
So it's a very relevant picture for this year. So with that, I will turn it to you for any questions or thoughts that you might have as we move into our good work.
What about the free and reduced lunch? Where does this enter any of this?
The number of disadvantaged students?
You know, the whole 50% number.
Yeah, we've been below that for the last 2 years. Well, no, 2 years ago, we got a significant hit because we did hit a threshold where, like, a child or two pushed us to the point where we got a significant amount of Title I or free and reduced funding. We didn't get that last year.
No.
And I don't see that we're gonna get it this year because we have fewer kids. You never count on it. You never count on that. But if you get it, because we're so close, right? Some years we're like, wow, we're really, look at the socioeconomic status of the people who live in this town. There's other years not so much. And with fewer kids, there's less.
I haven't looked at the numbers, but because the food has been free
Yeah.
this year, have you noticed a decrease in the request for free and reduced? That was a conversation that came up in the meeting up there.
Well, that's what he said.
Yeah, as soon as we knew that we were gonna get the food under the Federal Food Act or whatever they called it, we didn't even bother with Title I applications anymore because we knew it was there for everybody. And we were only going to then go back to the Title I application when the food wasn't free anymore, and Holly has not indicated that that's changed at all. I don't even know when it's gonna change. It's like when they run out of the federal money. Yeah. So that's,
I think they're going through the rest of the school year, so I don't.
You'd probably, at one point it was gonna be December 30th like everything else, but it didn't. So anybody who wants a lunch gets a lunch. So, no, I don't anticipate that happening this year, Jeanette. Good question, but it'll be a while before we get back to that. Anything else? Okay, we're gonna give you the dates and times before we leave tonight. We have them hard copy. Look at them. If there's any date just doesn't even work for you, if you can Zoom, great. If you can be here, great. But if it doesn't work for you, please reach out to me because these are all draft dates. Okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Great overview.
So you're saying these are draft dates, but you're not for sure for the warrant finance committee then, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, we drive the dates, so we give them the dates we're meeting and they show up.
Yeah,
What I don't know for sure, Dennis would like to support it, is on our last meeting where you vote in the budget after you've done all the articles,
Right.
we'd very much like to have them do their review that night.
Right.
With the idea that at least a couple of them have been with us through the whole process.
right.
And I've seen that happen, where they're with us through
Yeah.
the whole process. I've
Yeah.
never seen them vote on the same night. I'd love that. I haven't been here since that's ever
It's
happened.
been a
We used-
while,
we
but
used to do
have
that.
done it.
Yeah.
It was efficient, and because the budget is so transparent now, and everything is so clear, and everything is line by line item, everybody has a chance to see everything that's in there. And because of the meetings that are planned ahead, then, you know, it certainly could work and would be to everybody's advantage trying to set up different meetings if we could do that in one night.
Right, and the more the members that show up also is better.
Yeah, if
Then we don't
more
have
of
to
the
keep
warrant finance
explaining.
committee members come to our meetings,
Right.
they will have already had a chance to give input, and they will already have a chance to listen to the conversation and
Indeed.
the explanations of everything that's happened in the budget and why it's there and so forth. So that would be good if we could do that.
Well, hopefully, if they can't make it here, they could Zoom in.
Yeah. Yeah.
To the review meetings.
Yes.
Those ones, you know?
Yeah.
Right, sometimes it's I can make the meeting, but I can't get out of the house to be at the meeting, so
Mhm.
you can stay home and be at the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could potentially set up a regular scheduled Zoom meeting for each of them. So if any of you can't make it or the
Yeah.
warrant
Yeah,
finance,
definitely set that
they'll have
up.
a dedicated link they could always use.
That would be a great idea.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
at times, that's what took up so much of the time, because
bet.
those that didn't show up, we had to go back
you're
over and over the
reviewing-
same questions and
Yeah.
whatnot, so.
And we've had, decisions we've had to make before, like school's canceled, so we're not gonna have our meeting tonight, even if the storm has stopped, because Andy hasn't had a chance to make the parking lot safe, and somebody could get hurt or slip. With Zoom, I would even push for, you know what, even if it's inclement weather, if you can get online and you haven't lost power, then, it really keeps things very static. They're not as fluid. This is the date we're meeting, and most likely we'll get a quorum. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep,
Okay,
all right then. No old business?
Just executive session from here. Here are your
Executive session.
dates. I'll pass these out as executive session.
Okay. All right then, nobody else has anything to bring forward, so I'll look for a motion to go into executive session as per MRSA 4056A personnel matters.
I'll make a motion to go into an executive session at 5:56.
right.
Second.
Seconded by Amanda. All those in favor?
All righty, we'll take a quick recess and let the room move around a bit. Thank you, everybody.